The Forbidden City is in Beijing, China, and it is called the Forbidden City because no one could enter or leave without the emperor's permission. So that's how it gets its name. In terms of context, the Forbidden City was really the political and ritualistic center of China. Its construction began after an emperor was overthrown by his son, like dun dun dun, drama there. And he decided to move the capital to Beijing, and to secure his rule and kind of give a visual display of his rule and power, he started to have the Forbidden City built. So ultimately, it was home to him, and then eventually, as you know, when other emperors came into power, the emperors lived here. Their family lived here, staff, servants, everyone lived here basically. And the layout of the Forbidden City follows some very kind of symbolic and important um, ideology from Confucianism, and meaning that the layout of it was very organized and revealed like the buildings and how they looked and the number of buildings and how they were arranged reflected the social hierarchy and the roles. And it also created like this symbolic display of heaven and earth. The buildings are arranged in groups of three and ultimately in groups of six. So what ultimately would be accomplished is that the Forbidden City is showing really the unification of the cosmos and the earth together. And then within it, the buildings would reflect then the importance of who was occupying that building and the rituals going on in the space. Now, content-wise gets a little bit involved because there are a number of different images associated with the Forbidden City. There are 5 pictures in total. This is one of them, but imagine it without the red line and the blue line. I put that there just to help kind of split and divide the spaces into the parts that they need to be split into. So the red line is showing you the longitudinal axis, that center axis going down the space. This is a rectangular plan. And the most important buildings, you see there's like the bigger buildings along that red line or center axis. Those are the most important spaces in the Forbidden City. And then the blue line is dividing the public space from the private space. So the upper part of the slide where a lot more buildings are, there's a lot less open space. That's the domestic space. It has many more structures. It's less symmetrical. If you were walking in and around it, there'd be a lot more trees and nature, and it just felt a little bit more private, a little bit more intimate. And then the part that's more open on the other side of that blue line, that's where you have state functions, that's the outer court part, and only men are allowed in that front, court area, the outer court part. So that's an important way to know the division and kind of how things are arranged. Most important buildings along the center axis. Then a space is split in half, outer court for the rituals and state functions where men could only go, and the back part, which was domestic, where the women could be a little bit more intimate, little less kind of structured according, in an open way. It's more private, a little less symmetrical, but still keeping in mind the numerical symbolism, that unifies with heaven and earth. Okay. A couple other things you'll notice as we get to more of the pictures of the pieces. You'll see a lot of red and yellow, and that's going to unify everything together. Yellow was the color associated with the emperor, and red is the color of good fortune. So those are the dominant colors throughout. There were also throughout a lot of buildings, depending on the importance of the building and what went on inside it, you would see animals in sculpture, particularly on the roof, but also around like thrones and furniture, dragons, phoenix, the birds, lions. They all symbolized power. In the four corners, you have towers, and those represented the four corners of the world. And there you notice a blue kind of curving moat of water. It's called the River of Golden Water that was flowing throughout the complex. So that's basic content. And then here's a more kind of three-dimensional look and a listing of some of the buildings. Now, you don't need to know all of these, but I just wanted you to see a more three-dimensional layout of the more ceremonial state structure. You can see those buildings on the center axis. We're going to be focusing on the Meridian Gate, the Hall of Supreme Harmony, in that initial, like, more state section of the structure. Okay, so here is the front gate. This is one of the specific images that College Board wants you to know. So it's, again, known as the Meridian Gate or front gate. It's located at the south end of the center axis. It is basically the only entrance to the city. And once you get through that, you enter a courtyard in front of the most important building in the entire structure of the Forbidden City, called the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Now, in this Meridian Gate, there are a number of openings, like arched openings leading in. The center gateway, which is what you're seeing here, was part of what's called the Imperial Way, where only the emperor may walk or ride like a cart or whatever down the Imperial Way, except when he gets married. Then the Empress can do that one time. So I like this picture because it has the rope where it's like you can't pass here, a guard, and that just hits home this idea of this is the set aside entrance for the emperor. And again, you can see the red and yellow combination of colors. The roof eaves or the roof line curves up. You can see the animals up on top of the roof. Again, that would be suggesting of power. So this, again, your entrance into the Forbidden City, and called the Meridian Gate or front gate. Now, once you're past that, you're in this courtyard, which you can see where all the people are, and you see the most important building in the Forbidden City. It's definitely along that center axis, and it was used for grand ceremonies, like the emperor's birthday, celebrating the solstices, just any kind of important ritual ceremony. It would take place here. It is raised up on the highest of platforms, so stairs leading up, as you can see. It's the tallest building in the complex, again, showcasing its importance. And there is dragon imagery throughout on the roof, inside. You can see, along in reliefs everywhere. I put an image up at the top just so you can see the dragon throne that's inside. That's the throne room and the seat of power for the emperor. This is, and the color scheme is there. So it is absolutely the reflection of the emperor's power, the power of China, and it is one of the largest wooden buildings in China, the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Now, back in the more domestic space, you have the Palace of Tranquility and Longevity, and the College Board image they want you to know is the interior, which is really lovely. It's in the inner courtyard again. How it was used, it was first used as a shamanistic, remember shamanism is a religion. So at first it's used as a shamanistic sacrificial hall, and that was earlier in its history. And then eventually it became known as the bridal chamber. It would be where the newly married emperor and his wife would spend a few days after their wedding. Very lush in decoration, which I think you can see here. The roof is, the ceiling is painted. The walls are painted. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Roman style painting, how they would be decorating the interior. And again, to show status and a little bit of depth. There's gold, it's just this more private space, but yet still lush and showing the power of the emperor. But again, in the back, inner courtyard where the domestic buildings are. And I think that's it for the buildings that you have. Yeah, that is it. Okay, so let's go ahead and just discuss for a moment formal qualities and function. So function here, definitely power. Yeah. It is a domestic space as well in terms of the back. I hope when we were talking about this, you were thinking of non-Madal, from the Pacific unit we did. Versailles would be another great companion to this piece from the French Baroque era with Louis XIV. I think those are two great related pieces. So again, function, power, and some domestic space. Also ceremonial, lots of different rituals and ceremonies going on as well. I would say color is a great formal quality because, again, the color being so symbolic, the yellow and red of good fortune, of the emperor. So that for sure is one of the formal qualities. I would do space as well because space is so clearly divided between, inner court, outer court, and the things that go on are dependent upon where you are in the court. Your access, to things is dependent upon, like, women can't go in that one particular space of the outer court. So space is incredibly important here. So again, that is the Forbidden City in Beijing, China, made during the Ming Dynasty. And again, remember, Forbidden City, no one enters or leaves without the emperor's permission.